Before Genesis was ever written, before Abraham heard the voice of God, before Moses climbed Mount Sinai, there was Job, a man of deep reverence, a man of great wealth, a man who walked with God and still lost everything. But why start here? Because Job's story doesn't begin with light, it begins with loss. And it raises the question every soul eventually asks, why do the righteous suffer? This isn't just a book, it's a confrontation with pain, with purpose, and with the unseen plans of God. Why we're starting with Job. Most people expect the Bible to begin with Genesis, and in page order, it does. But if we trace the books by when they were written, Job stands at the very beginning, older than Exodus, older than the Torah, passed down orally from the ancient world. Job gives us a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the oldest questions humanity has ever asked. Why do good people suffer? Where is God when life falls apart? Is pain always punishment? And most importantly, can faith survive when there are no answers? We begin with Job, not because it's the easiest book, but because it's the most honest. Before the law, before the nation of Israel, before the promise of a Messiah, God gives us a suffering man who still worships. In the previous video, we walked through the entire story of the Bible, how it's structured, how it's divided by eras, and how every part points to God's redemptive plan. We saw Scripture unfold across time in these periods: creation, patriarchs, Exodus, conquest, judges, kingdom, exile, return, silence, gospel, church, missions, the end. A timeline crafted by the hand of God. But zoom in, and you'll find stories, real people, real pain, real faith. Now we walk into one of those stories. We step into the ashes with Job, the land of Uz, far from Jerusalem, outside of Israel, ancient, undefined, yet real. Job is not a Hebrew. He's not under the law. There's no mention of Moses or the covenant or the temple. But Job knows God. He offers sacrifices for his children. He fears the Lord. He walks in righteousness. This places Job in the patriarchal era, possibly around the time of Abraham or earlier. His story is universal. His pain is timeless. His questions are ours. Let's look at Job chapter 1, verse 1. There was a man in the land of whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and eschewed evil. Let's slow down and examine the words the Spirit chose to use. The Hebrew word for blameless is tam. It means whole, complete, having integrity, not perfect but sincere. Upright is yashar, straight, level, morally pleasing to God. The phrase feared God speaks of reverence, awe, and obedience, not mere terror. And eschewed evil, an older English rendering, means he intentionally turned away from wickedness. He didn't flirt with sin. He fled it. Job didn't just believe in God, he shaped his life around honoring him. His relationship with God was not shallow, it was rooted, reverent, and real. Blameless, not sinless, but full of integrity. Upright, not perfect, but consistent. He feared God and lived like it. He turned from evil intentionally, decisively, habitually. His relationship with God was not shallow, it was reverent. Verses 2 and 3. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. These numbers aren't random. They symbolize fullness and divine blessing. 7 is the number of completion. 10 children, symbolic perfection in family. Thousands of livestock, a sign of massive ancient wealth. Camels were long-distance transport, oxen for farming, donkeys for local movement and labor. Job was diversified, resource-rich, and well-known. He wasn't just good, he was great. He was a patriarch, a regional powerhouse, wealthy, respected, favored, but even that wouldn't exempt him from suffering. Verses 4 and 5. His sons would gather and feast, rotating days of celebration. And Job, he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings. Why? Because he said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." The word for cursed in Hebrew here is barak, which usually means to bless, but is used euphemistically to mean curse when paired with God's name, a respectful way of expressing something irreverent without directly stating it. In other words, Job feared even hidden, unspoken sin, not outward rebellion, but inward dishonor. Job was the spiritual covering of his family, a priest before there were priests, and he did this continually. Why this matters? This is the world God invites us into, a righteous man, a blessed man, a devoted man, and yet not spared. The tests are coming, the winds will rise, the heavens will open, and not with comfort, but with confrontation. But don't miss this. Job was ready before the storm, and that is what made him unshakable. Job's blessing was great, but his suffering will be greater. And even though he walked with God, he was still chosen to walk through the fire. Why? Because sometimes the strongest are tested, not to be broken, but to reveal a deeper glory. In the next episode, we go behind the curtain, into heaven itself, where Satan appears before God and the testing begins. If you've ever wondered why bad things happen to good people, this book is for you. If you've ever felt abandoned in your pain, this book is for you. And if you want to know the God who sees, even in the ashes, this journey begins here. Subscribe, share, and join me for episode 2, where the war in heaven touches earth. This is the story of Job.